Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are watching this video. This is With Love, Megan, Season 2, Episode 5, Spice Up Your Life Review. So the show opens up with Megan, her friend Jamie. She's an entrepreneur and the manager and the owner of an olive oil factory in Ojai, California. And she's going there to learn about uh, olive oil, how it's made, and what they do with it. So the owner tells her that the first tree that they planted on that land is a French olive oil tree. So he says that a year of sunlight can make 1 gallon of olive oil. So imagine all those trees that they have on that land. That's a lot of olive oil. And they drink it. They're rubbing it all on their hands and stuff like that. So there's that scene. So she's introducing her guests in the next scene, Jay and Radha Shetty. Megan met this couple at a dinner party a year and a half ago. And she's saying how lovely they are and how they're vegetarian. And I think Roddy's like a vegan cook. And then Jay, he's like a podcaster. Interesting. So she's making Roddy and Jay like some nice soda water. So she gets the strawberries, the blueberries, 2 soda waters, an agave, and a pitcher. And now she's starting to put the ingredients together. So she starts putting lemon juice in the pitcher. And then she adds the raspberries and she's chopping the raspberries up with a fork. And then she was like, as you put the leaves and everything in the drink, you don't want your guest to be drinking a salad because she was going to put basil in there. And then she adds the agave and then she adds then she adds the soda water in there. Yeah, so she takes out ice cubes from the freezer that she made in season 1, aka a couple of weeks ago. Okay. And then she was like, nothing wrong with putting a little more flavor in there. So we're going to put the peppermint and this little floral flower and this basil. I was just like, yeah, you keep, now you letting people drink the flowers, Megan, that you made a couple of weeks ago. Oh my gosh. And then she adds the leaf basil. And then she's like, well, now that I'm done, I'm gonna go freshen up and then come make a third one for my wife. So Radha enters the kitchen first and she gives Megan a hug. The usual greeting, hi, hi. And then Jay enters and she gives him a hug. And he's like, thank you for having me. Oh, she's like, okay. So Radha and Jay are an Indian couple, and they're from Britain. Cause I could tell by their accent, I was like, they got a little accent. And to me, you guys, Jay and Radha can look like they're literally brother and sister. Literally, instead of husband and wife. And so Radha was like, "Oh, this is so good. It's very tart. And I don't really like stuff that's so sweet." And she was like, "Oh, you're so sweet." And then she was like, "Yeah, I don't remember." Oh, yes, yes. They were talking about game night because Radha was like, "We can host up to 40 people." And Megan was like, "Oh my God, 40 people?" And then she like looks back, like all in surprise. And I'm just like, wow, what? And then she's like, "I can never host up to 40 people." Lord, Megan. So Megan was like, "We're going to go back into my craft room and we're going to make olive oil soap instead of just thinking about what can we make with it for cooking. Let's see if we can make it like a body scrub, a beautiful body wash. And then I want to know how to make all your vegan dishes." And Jay, he was just like, "Yeah, that's great. Thank you for having us." Like, he's very polite. And he was like, "Thank you for having us over and really appreciate spending some time with you." I was like, wow, Megan really has some appreciative guests. So Megan has these rectangular boxes where they're gonna put the soap, and then she was like, "These are these are vegan soaps. You can just buy them online or whatever, and then we're gonna chop them up, and then we're gonna put them on the double boiler." And then, they start making jokes with Jay because he's struggling to, cut the soaps and so to little chunks. And then they put him on the double boiler, and then they're talking about what scent they want to put with the olive oil and things like that. Okay, so one at a time, they start taking their little olive oil melted down soaps and they pour it into the little rectangular thing, and then they start adding little 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 oils to it, and then everybody grabbed the hibiscus because it just smells so good, they say. And then Megan added some little thing for exfoliation. And then so when they were done, they put the top on, and then Megan was like, "Now we're gonna go and whip up a feast." So now that the scene shifts and everybody's back in the rented kitchen, they're going to make sweet potato green bean curry. So they're chopping up the sweet potatoes, and Jay, like when he cut it, he like flinched a little bit, and they're like, Megan was like, "Don't hurt yourself." He was like, I won't." But he looked like he was literally about to cut himself, y'all. And then after that, they started talking, and Radha uh, was saying after she studied Aveda, she was using medicines. I mean, spices as medicines. That's pretty cool. So Megan goes on about her son Archie, and she's like, When my son Archie was born and he would have belly aches, I would take a little pinch of hand and put it in his belly button. And then I would say, "Oh, there's some hinge in there." And my son would be like, "Mom, it's just a spice." Yeah, I believe that, Megan. Yeah, so all of a sudden, green beans, peas, and the chili beans. Oh my God, those chilies. Oh my God, you guys, those chilies look very spicy and they're so dark green, right? So they all appear on the table and they're chopping up the ginger really fine. And then Jay was like, "Oh, Megan, you got a really strong spice palette." And she was like, "Oh, yes, yes, I do. You know, all them herbs and spices." And then she just like bumps up, like moves her hands in a circular motion and bumps up her shoulders. And I'm just like, "Megan, you ain't really saying nothing, girl. You just should have said yes and kept it moving." So Megan's cutting up the cauliflower and she's talking about the seeds, the black mustard seeds, and the astigmatic seed, and her astala masala. And so those are the seeds that they will be using in the dish to bring out some of the flavor. And then Megan goes, "The more you know." Like, like the little rainbow sign. Girl. So they're gonna move over now since all their ingredients are cut up and separated and everything. Rada was like, "Now we're gonna make none." And then Megan, because Rada said that there's yogurt in none, and Megan was like, "Yogurt? I never knew there was yogurt in none." Girl, you never made none before. So now they're starting to make none. They put the yeast in with the warm water because the hot water would kill the yeast. And then Jay was like, my mom would make none, and I would get so excited. Me and my sister would get super excited. And then Megan was like, "It's like my kids when they talk about chocolate chip pancakes." Yeah. And and then Jay was like, "I'm waiting for my turn." So then he puts the flour in because it's his turn to put the flour in the nun. Okay, so now they're adding in the second batch of flour, and then they're adding in some olive oil, and then Megan's rolling up into a bun, and she was like, "How do you want this?" And then Rada sprinkles flour on the cutting board, and then she just rolls it in the flour, and then she takes the warm towel and Rada puts it over the bowl. And then she's like, "We're gonna let it rise for about half an hour." Okay, I'm sorry. Then they start doing the curry. So they put in the black seed, the mustard seed, all types of seeds, and first with the olive oil in the pan. Okay, so now she adds in um the ginger, and then they're adding the sweet potatoes, the green beans, the curry, some salt. And then she's like, "Okay, we're going to add some water. And then we're going to add some coconut milk." And then they put the lid on the pot. And Megan was like, "Oh, that was easy as pie." So now they're going to start making the bread none. The dough. So the dough arrives. It's been 30 minutes. And then Um, they Rada takes the dough from the, and so there's more dough, and so she's grabbing the chunks, and Megan's like, "Oh, fun!" And she gives to her husband and Megan, and then there's flour on the table, and they're rolling it in the flour, and then Rada pulls out her. She only brought two of her rolling pins. They're from India. She says, I only use these. I don't use the American rolling pins. And Meg was like, oh, okay, stuttering and putting them back, but there's only two, so she had to give one to Jay. And so Megan had her hand out, and then Rod and then Rhoda started talking, so she moved her hand. And so they're rolling it, and Jay was like, "This is how I never made none. This rolling pin is too big. I don't know if my mom would ever be proud of this." I was like, "What?" So Megan and Rada, they're done with theirs because theirs is really, 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 really thin. Okay. And then so Rada was like, okay, we're gonna put onion seeds on the bread, but I don't know why would they call them onion seeds if they're not in the onion family or whatever. So Jay up there struggling, still using the rolling pin trying to get his flat. So right now Rada is doing it for him to get it flat for him. So now they're adding the turmeric, the hinge, and the garma masala. And she was like, "Oh, you can just throw that in." And then Megan throws in her damn 2 cents, like, "Ah, it smells so good. Oh, it smells so good. This is my style of cooking. This is how I cook at home. You know, if it smells good, why not just throw in some more?" And I'm thinking, I don't know, Megan. You're a royal. Do you really cook at home in real life? Eh. So, Rada is showing Megan how to cook the naan bread, and so she puts it in a pot, and it's bubbling around, and then so not Rada takes her fingers and flips it over, and it starts to get brown, and then she was like, I take a paper towel and I would press on it to make it fluff up. But I guess it wasn't fluffing like to her likeness. So she took that shit out the pan and threw it on the stove, and that shit was popping. Like it was blowing up. And then Meg was like, oh my God, look at that. And then Rob flipped that mess over, and it had like little char. And then threw it, she threw it onto the counter, and she told Megan, spread some butter and some cilantro on it. So she does. So Rada is skipping the whole pan altogether, and she's just slapping it on the stove. And Megan's doing her thing with her cilantro and slapping the butter everywhere. And then so it looks like there's four on there. It looks like four. And then Megan brings it to the counter like, oh. So Rada added a little bit of lemon juice, and she was like, we need somebody to cut up some cilantro. And Megan was like, we're just going to have Jay do it. And Jay was like, yo, I'm right here. I can hear you. So Jay is cutting up the cilantro, and then Megan sprinkles it. And then before Megan can F up the meal, Rada puts it on the plates, okay? Before she could put any flowers on there. Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes, Rada. So as Megan is like ripping the stuff off and putting like little bits in her mouth, and she looks at Rod and goes, "Oh, this is so comforting," with like food in her mouth. So Megan was like, "Do you guys eat most of the time, most of the week here like this?" And Rada was like, she shook her head, yeah. And then Meg was like, I need to up my game because this is not a long process to make. This is really easy. So now Megan's like, you guys have to try this. Oh my God, it is so good. And then so you'll see the camera people eating the food. So I think that's cool too. Feed everybody. So Meg was like, we need to go to our craft bar and check up on our soaps and come back for some dessert and some tea. But right now we need to go get our soaps. So they're going now. They're taking the rubber part out of the box and they're peeling it off. And everybody's like, oh my God, this is so good. This is interesting. And now they're cutting it. So Megan, I guess Megan's cutting it a certain way. And then Rhonda was like, oh, I like that. I'm going to copy you. So they're copying each other, cutting up the soaps into squares, and then they're like, "Oh God, we need to have like one of each." And then Megan pulls out this box with just like three cut squares, and they're like giving them to like each other. And then Megan was like, "I didn't put enough essential oils," and then Jay was like, "Yeah, you did." So there's her intermission where Megan teaches us how to make uh vegan macaroons. And yeah, let's just say there's flowers on top of the macaroons and just call it a day. So Megan was like, I made you guys these macaroons, but I really don't want to put you back to work, but I really want to taste your chai. And then Rhonda was like, oh, that's fine. Uh, do you have some chai masala here? So they had boiling water on a stove, and then they got the chai masala spice, and then she poured the tea bag, the black tea in a tea bag, and she's like, I make one tea bag for two people, and what else did she do? Yeah, and she's about to put it on the stove. So Rada was like, you can make chai masala at home is cardamom, cinnamon, and clove, ginger and black pepper. And then Jay's going into when the time you can remember when he was small that him and his sister growing up would drink chai masala when they're every Sunday when their mom would make it in the mornings. So now that the water's boiling, she's adding oat milk because she likes the water but double the milk to make it, I guess, creamy. So there's um, sh- Rhonda was like, my mom would put mint in it, and Jay was like, I never had with mint before. That's crazy. Yeah, let's put the mint in. And then Megan goes and gets the mint, and she shreds it inside. So I guess she didn't close the tea bag all the way because the black tea came out of the bag while it was boiling, so they had to strain it out. And now they're pouring 3 glasses of the chai mansala. So Jay and Radha was like, "Oh, this is such a good mixture." This is so good. Very good. So Megan was like, oh, yes, it's very amazing and it's very, very dunkable. And then she's like, you guys can take the rest home. And Jay was like, I know I am. I'm going to be eating them in the car on the way home. And then Megan, she started talking about, you know, being here with you guys, building a connection and doing a community and, and your CCF, was very good because I really enjoyed myself. And then Jay, he was like, I'm so happy that you had us here with you and spending time with us. And I really appreciate it. And then Megan was like, oh my God. And then Jay was like, I mean it. And then Megan gave him a hug. And then she gave Rada a hug. And she was like, if you guys ever run out of olive oil, just let me know. And they there started laughing and the showing off like that.